Sold it last Tuesday, my mother said dismissively over the phone, her voice carrying the particular contempt she reserved for anything she considered beneath her attention. Just old canvases and frames, dusty junk you should have cleared out years ago. Got $800 at the estate auction. More than that garbage was worth, if you ask me. I stood frozen in my apartment, processing what she'd just confessed to, because that storage unit contained my entire art collection. Pieces I'd spent 20 years acquiring. But why would a buyer call me 3 days later with a voice shaking so badly he could barely speak? And why did his next words make my knees buckle? "Ma'am, do you know what was in that unit? I'm an art dealer. I've been in this business for 30 years. He paused, audibly collecting himself. These old canvases include works by 3 artists whose paintings have sold for 6 and 7 figures at major auction houses. What are you saying? I'm legally and ethically required to inform you that your mother sold approximately $3.2 million worth of art for $800. His voice cracked. Who told her these were worthless? Because someone either lied to her or she made assumptions that destroyed something irreplaceable. The art collection had been my secret sanctuary. For 20 years, I'd been quietly acquiring pieces. Not for investment, though that's what they'd become, but for love. Art had saved me during the darkest periods of my life. My divorce, my career struggles, the years when my family made clear I was the disappointing daughter who'd never lived up to expectations. I'd discovered emerging artists before they became famous. I'd bought pieces from gallery shows that nobody attended, from estate sales where families didn't understand what they were selling, from artists directly when I believed in their vision. The collection had started as therapy and evolved into something extraordinary. But I'd kept it hidden. My family, particularly my mother, had always dismissed my interests as frivolous. Art was decorations. Collecting was hoarding. My eye for undiscovered talent was wasting money on garbage. So I'd stored the collection in a climate-controlled unit, visiting privately, never telling anyone what I'd accumulated. Until my mother decided to help by selling it. The storage unit had been rented in my name, but billed to a bank account my mother had access to. A financial arrangement from years earlier, when I'd been struggling and she'd helped with expenses. I'd long since become self-sufficient, but the automatic payments had continued, and I'd never thought to change them. When I'd missed 3 months of rent due to a billing error I hadn't noticed, the storage company had contacted the account holder, my mother. Instead of telling me about the issue, she decided to handle it herself. Those paintings were worthless anyway, she'd said when I'd called to confirm what had happened. I went to look before the auction. Old dusty, most of them not even signed properly. The auctioneer agreed they were junk. You went through my belongings without telling me? I was doing you a favor. You should be thanking me for cleaning up your mess. That mess was worth $3.2 million. The silence on the line was long and uncomfortable. That's impossible. They were original works by artists whose careers I followed for 20 years. Artists who are now represented in major museums. Artists whose early pieces, the ones I bought, are considered historically significant. Well, how was I supposed to know that? You could have asked me before selling my property. The art dealer's name was Marcus Whitmore. He'd bought the entire contents of my unit for $800 at what the auction house called an estate clearance sale. The category reserved for abandoned storage units and deceased persons' belongings. When he'd unpacked the crates in his gallery storage, he'd realized immediately what he was looking at. The Hernandez piece alone is worth $400,000 on current markets, he told me during our first meeting. The 2 Johansson watercolors, she's dead now, and her early work is extremely rare, probably $350,000 each. The Okafor sculpture collection, the unsigned preliminary studies by artists who later became famous. He spread photographs across the table. You have had one of the most impressive private collections of emerging to established contemporary art I've ever seen outside of museum holdings. How did you build this? I loved art. I had an eye for talent. I bought what moved me. You bought what moved you, and it turns out you have extraordinary instincts. He shook his head. Ms. Patterson, I've been doing this for 3 decades. I've never seen anyone with your track record for identifying artists before they break through. None of that matters now. My mother sold it for $800. The legal situation was complicated. Marcus had purchased the collection through a legitimate auction. He'd paid the asking price in good faith. Legally, he owned the art, but the sale itself might be voidable. My mother had no authority to sell my property. The storage company should have contacted me directly before auctioning my belongings. The auction house had potentially failed to perform due diligence on ownership. There are arguments on both sides, my attorney explained. But litigation would be expensive, lengthy, and uncertain. Mr. Whitmore could tie this up for years, and even if you won, the collection might be dispersed by then. What's the alternative? Negotiation. Mr. Whitmore seems genuinely disturbed by how he acquired the collection. He might be willing to work something out. Marcus made an offer that surprised me. I'll sell the collection back to you at my cost, $800, on one condition. What condition? Let me represent you as an art advisor. Let me document and authenticate your collection properly. Let me help you build it further. He leaned forward. Ms. Patterson, you have a gift. What you built over 20 years, without formal training, without gallery connections, without anyone helping you, it's remarkable. I want to work with you. Why? You could make millions selling these pieces. I could make money. I could also build a reputation as someone who helped a legitimate collector recover what was wrongfully taken from her. In my business, reputation matters more than any single transaction. And if I say no, then I'll sell the collection at fair market prices and donate the proceeds minus my costs to an arts education charity. I won't profit from your mother's mistake, but I'd rather help you recover what's yours. The recovery process took 3 months. Marcus worked with the auction house, the storage company, and legal counsel to unwind the sale properly. He authenticated each piece, documented provenance, and created a comprehensive catalog of the collection. The formal valuation came in at $3.8 million, higher than his initial estimate once everything was properly assessed. I paid him $800 plus his authentication costs, approximately $15,000 total, and recovered art worth nearly 250 times what my mother had sold it for. This is the best deal you'll ever make, Marcus observed as we completed the paperwork. Why are you doing this? Really? Because what happened to you is wrong. Because your mother dismissed something she didn't understand and nearly destroyed it. Because I've seen too many collections lost to ignorance and carelessness. He paused. And because helping you feels better than profiting from your loss. My mother's response to the recovery was predictable. So you got it back. Good for you. I still think those paintings are ugly. They're worth $3.8 million. Money doesn't make something beautiful. No, but understanding might. You sold my life's work for $800 because you assumed anything I valued must be worthless. I was trying to help. You were trying to control. You always have been. My interests don't matter to you unless they're interests you approve of. My achievements don't count unless they're achievements you understand. That's not fair. It's exactly fair. You went through my belongings without permission. You sold my property without consultation. You dismissed years of careful collecting as garbage because you couldn't see value in anything I'd chosen. The silence stretched long. I didn't know, she finally said. You didn't ask. You never ask. You just decide what I'm worth and act accordingly. The collection is properly housed now. Marcus helped me find appropriate storage, museum-quality climate control, proper security, professional management. Some pieces are on loan to galleries. Others are being considered for museum acquisitions. The garbage my mother sold for $800 has become a recognized collection, documented in art world publications, cited as an example of visionary collecting. I've started building again, too. Marcus introduces me to emerging artists, and my instincts remain sharp. The gift that saved me during dark years continues to bring light. My relationship with my mother didn't survive the incident intact. We speak occasionally, holidays, family emergencies, but the easy dismissal she'd always shown me had finally produced consequences she couldn't ignore. I said I was sorry, she told me during one of our stilted conversations. You said you were sorry I was upset. That's different from being sorry for what you did. I made a mistake. You made a choice. You chose to sell my belongings without asking. You chose to dismiss my interests as worthless. You chose to help in a way that could have destroyed something I'd built for 20 years. I kept my voice level. The mistake was mine, for ever trusting you to understand anything I valued. Marcus became a friend as well as a professional advisor. He understood something my family never had, that passion and expertise can exist outside recognized channels, that someone without credentials can still have extraordinary abilities, that dismissing what you don't understand is the surest way to miss what matters. "Your mother saw dusty canvases," he said once. "You saw potential. That's the difference between someone who looks and someone who sees. She's never going to understand that." No, but you don't need her to understand. You need to keep seeing what others miss. The art dealer who paid $800 for $3.8 million in paintings could have kept everything. The law might have been on his side. The profit would have been life-changing. Most people in his position would have taken the money and considered themselves lucky. Marcus chose differently. He chose integrity over profit, relationship over transaction, doing right over doing well. In a world where my mother could sell my life's work for pocket change without a second thought, Marcus's choice felt revolutionary. "Why didn't you just keep it?" I asked him once. "Because I'd have to live with myself afterward. Some profits aren't worth the cost of earning them." The collection continues to appreciate. Recent appraisals put the total value at over $5 million, and several pieces are being sought by major institutions. The 20 years I spent building something in secret, hiding it from family who would have mocked me, investing in beauty they couldn't see, all of it has been validated. But the validation doesn't erase the original wound. My mother looked at my life's work and saw garbage. She sold it for $800 without a second thought. She dismissed 20 years of passion, knowledge, and carefully developed expertise because she couldn't imagine her disappointing daughter had built anything worthwhile. The art came back. The trust didn't. She sold it for $800, just old canvases and frames. 20 years of collecting, artists I discovered before anyone knew their names, pieces that defined movements and launched careers. She saw dusty junk. An art dealer saw $3.8 million in masterworks. He could have kept everything, profited beyond imagination. Instead, he sold it back to me for what he'd paid, because doing right mattered more than doing well. My mother still thinks those paintings are ugly. My mother still doesn't understand what she nearly destroyed. But the collection is safe now, properly housed, properly valued. And I've learned that some people see potential where others see garbage, and that knowing the difference is worth more than any amount they might pay.